I have no doubt that I was influenced by my childhood in Alaska. Being born and growing up there was a real privilege, and it gave me a real respect for the fact that when we design and build houses, we have to really consider the land, the impact on the land and the earth as a whole. But at the age of 9, I was involved in the third largest earthquake in recorded history at the time, and the earthquake itself didn't kill anybody, but the tsunami that followed did. And it got me really interested in the whole concept of houses that could survive disasters. Experiences later in Samoa and other countries where personal friends of mine died in tsunamis and other events showed me that disasters are now part of the world we live in. They can be man-made or natural disasters, but the idea of creating houses that could survive those certainly became very important to me. So after some years of building conventional houses, designing super yachts, hotels, resorts, restaurants, and a lot of houses, and then having my own building company building conventional houses, in the year 2008, when the world went through the financial upheavals, I decided I had to move towards more affordable models of housing. And this led us to our first shipping container projects, which we carried on for about a decade, actually about 12 years doing these. And during that time, we went through 3 generations of change. I was still doing very high-end design throughout all this time, and doing some very fine homes, in fact. But the idea of the affordable house, the disaster-proof house, just became such a driving thing that I really focused more and more energy on that. And now we've completed projects around the world, and focusing mainly in New Zealand and the South Pacific, of course, but doing some very interesting things. Now, coming back to the first question, why use containers in the first place? Well, containers are very unique. They can be deployed very rapidly, as we saw in Christchurch and other post-disaster situations. They're very cheap to move around the planet, 40 times cheaper than trucks, trains, and cars. Shipping containers around the world is one of the most effective ways to move products. And of course, the whole world today supports this huge network of how we move things around the planet, which makes the idea of building modular and moving around the world very effective. Every country has ports. We live in Tauranga here in New Zealand, one of the largest ports in the country, very effective. But even little countries like Rarotonga have their own ports, and you could actually send containers to Antarctica. So they move, as you know, by ship, by train, by truck. They could be moved again and again multiple times. And here in Tauranga, we also experience the disaster of the Rena running aground on a reef. The containers that you see in the picture here are carrying on 2 boats well over 100 tons. Now, no house could withstand that. In fact, the containers at the bottom being crushed, those are called reefers. Those are the aluminum, styrofoam, refrigerated containers. We don't use those at all, of course, but containers are designed to stack for free, to span for free, and to cantilever without any further need of engineering. So they're so architecturally and engineering superior to other forms of housing that they give us huge advantages in how we do it, what we do. They are effectively very low-cost structures, and this has been a huge advantage to us in our work. So we've done some very high-end projects, of course, some very beautiful homes, but we're also focusing on trying to make the most affordable homes. While doing that, however, we're trying to avoid the typical container look. That shipping container with a door and window cut into it is just not everybody's cup of tea. So we're using what's called Corten steel. It's a copper alloy, and it's very interesting because this is a very expensive material for architects to use, but by international law, the shipping container has to be built with Corten steel. And so we're able to do very high quality projects which are effectively just using the naked material of the container. The advantage of that being there's no painting involved, and so there's virtually no maintenance program involved. If you are simply using proper Corten, you must make sure that you don't replace that with other types of steel, of course. So as you know, containers have been used all over the world for some very serious projects, and it's really nothing new. We certainly didn't invent it. What we have done, however, is to focus on making it more beautiful and more effective as a housing material. And so to do that, we've leveraged our experience in yachts. I've designed the interiors of several super yachts. My original training was in yacht interiors. Now, yacht interiors are all about spatial optimization, making multitasking areas where you can do multiple things in one space, and even a $10 million yacht, of which I've designed several in that category, they're not very big. They're actually quite small. And so the idea of making the most of spaces is extremely critical. So we went through 3 generations. The first generation of our work, which is still being used around the world, is just take an old container, chop it up, put some doors and windows in it, cover the outside to look pretty or not, and then away you go, and that's your house. The second generation was to use brand new containers and not clad the outside, but to simply allow the material of the container to be the cladding, and it actually is a fantastic cladding, much stronger than almost every cladding you can find in New Zealand. But the idea of those projects was that the interiors would be very warm and beautiful and natural, and they were. So first generation was using old containers, second generation was using new containers. Third generation is where you actually have to find a factory that makes containers and go to them and say, hey, I want you to build me a house with doors and windows in these positions. I want you to engineer it with those large spaces already cut out. I want you to do it in Core 10 steel, and I want the roof structure, gutters, downpipes, everything to be MIG welded as part of that structure, not like a roof that's held on with pop rivets and screws and silicone that can blow off, but a very solid roof system. And that is what we call third generation. Now, third generation, to my knowledge, there's only a few companies in the world able to do that. We're one of them, and we're sourcing out of Vietnam, a factory with which we have an exclusive relationship, who builds only for us, and basically each house we do is unique. We can certainly do mass production, but Kiwis are unique in that they really like things done exactly the way they want them. And it's a small country, but a very individualistic country. So we've geared our whole system for producing really personally designed homes. And the projects we have on the board at the moment are all totally different to each other, totally unique houses. So Earthcube now is involved in an international supply chain, which we've set up over the last 12 years. And we're basically bringing the best of the best together to produce what we consider to be, if you like, the Humvee of houses. It's really strongly built, but also uniquely beautiful homes. So let us know how we can help you, and we're here to do that. Thank you very much.